Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at a few really simple things that players can do early in their backswing that will set them up for a better rotation and put them in a better spot to transition from. Thanks very much for tuning in. Today's video is very much a reflection back on the last couple of months where I've done a number of 3D sessions, and there definitely were some themes, considerations that I want to share with you all that help players move better early in the swing, that had a really positive impact on how they completed their backswing and to transition better. So what's cool with the 3D is you can just see on a much closer level, because everything's measured, how a small movement early in the swing, like a domino almost like effect, can lead to movements through backswing and then setting a player up for a certain transition. So really common one here that I want to share with you today is one where a player would complete their backswing using a little bit too much extension in their spine to achieve rotation, because they've lost options from a rotation from how they moved earlier in the backswing. Okay, so a couple of considerations to keep in mind. So if you're a player looking to improve your transition, definitely have a think about each of these considerations. Okay, so the first one I'd like to share with you today is the relationship between the different segments in the backswing from a timing standpoint. So the analogy I like to share with players is, imagine that the club head is lane 8, the hands are maybe lane 6, the body maybe lane 4, and the pelvis maybe lane 1 or 2. So the pelvis, obviously through the backswing, doesn't have to move in space as much as the club head. So through backswing, we have to let the club head travel more distance in relation to the other segments. And a couple of different pieces of feedback or cues that I share with players to help them to initiate the backswing in a way to help that is, if you were to set up, let's just say by the time your hands get to your trail foot, we want the club head to have passed the hands. Okay, so at the same time here, actually, the butt of the club points right at my lead hip. So by the time the hands are at the trail foot, the club head is past the hands and the butt of the club points at my lead hip here. And then by the time the club shaft is level parallel with the ground, my hands are now outside my elbow. So the club head passes the hands, and then the hands pass the elbow by the time the club is parallel to the ground. So we're looking somewhat like that. So butt of the club at the lead hip while the hands are at the foot, and then by the time that the club is parallel to the ground, the trail hand specifically is quite visually outside the trail elbow there. So that's a nice little reference point for the start of the swing. Very common to see players move the hands too much in relation to the club head and the body here. And a very common adaptation that I saw with a number of players is that when you see that, the lead side will start to compress. So, and that leads us into our second point, a rotation in the spine. So what we're looking for, if we can, with players, assuming here no limitations from a rotational standpoint through T-spine, through the neck, big assumption there obviously, is we're looking for a top-down pivot where the rotation in the spine starting somewhere more visually up through the neck, working down through the thoracic spine into the lumbar spine, and then we're going to be moving into like loading the hip. So we're looking for that top-down pivot. But when the hands move too much too soon, or the pelvis moves too much too soon, we'll lose that top-down pivot, and that can lead to the spine being in a certain position where it's hard for it to rotate nicely at the top of backswing. So because it's losing options. We're always looking, as far as rotation, and maintaining options. From a simple standpoint, if you could think of maybe a bone in a joint, how if you were to position it one way in comparison to another, it's going to have less freedom to move. So we're looking to keep freedom as we move through backswing. So we're looking at that top-down movement, and when we do a good job of that top-down movement, we maintain let's say a similar length on each side of your body there. So if you were to get into just say a standard hands across your shoulders move, we're looking to maintain specifically the reference point I would give players is across the lead side here, the distance between your lead hip and your bottom rib. As you rotate to the top of backswing, feel as though you maintain the length there. You may get a little bit shorter towards the very end of backswing, but let's just say through, let's say at least halfway through backswing, to left arm is parallel to the ground is a good little reference. We're maintaining the length or the distance between the lead hip and the bottom rib. So that's the consideration number 2, how you're rotating through your spine. And then consideration number 3 was let's just say the pace or the timing of the movement from your lead side to your trail side from a feel standpoint through the ground. So again, very common movement that I saw with players was to move to where there'd be a lot of pressure under their trail side really early in their backswing. So if you move this way really early, something's going to have to start moving backwards towards the target to help keep you in balance a little bit sooner. And that's the pattern I often saw with players. So just very simply, I would suggest to players, can we get the club to at least parallel to the ground here before too much like pressure shift has happened. Now if you were to put someone on a pressure plate, you'd see a little bit of pressure shift there, moving the mass of the arms, the rotation, moving to the trail side. You would see a little bit, but we don't actually have to, like, in lots of cases, make an effort to move into our trail side. Let's let where the club head is going, where the hands are going, doing a good job at the top down pivot. Let's let that feed down into the movement of the lower body. So simple way I had a lot of players work on these 3 different elements was, can we get to, I've used the club parallel to the ground reference before, so like right around here, can we get to here by maintaining that distance between the lead hip and the lead bottom rib? Can we get there without the lead knee moving too much out towards the lead toes? That's a great little reference point. Often when a player shifts early, you'll see the knee move very early. So can we keep the lead side a little bit more quiet, that lead knee quite quiet in the takeaway there while we're keeping that distance? And again, using those reference points, club head passes the hands while the hands are over the trail foot, butt to the lead hip, and that's how we get into the club shaft parallel there with the trail hand quite visually outside the trail shoulder there. So really nice, very clear, I find, reference points there to help players initiate the swing better. And again, the whole purpose of this topic is so that the player can get to around here, and from there they've still got as many options as hopefully we can get them to move and rotate to the top of backswing without having to move into too much extension. And from there, if you were to hold your position, you should be able to feel as though the lead hip can move much more freely, as opposed if I was to go into extension here where we've got the mass more tilted over the lead hip, it's a little harder for it to move. So that's a great little awareness builder as well, just kind of rotating to the top, removing the extension, and then just playing around with your movement of your lead hip. Hopefully there's a couple of considerations, or one of them that may match your game to help you to build towards better ball striking.